Let's get started. Welcome to today's webinar, Encuentro Square, Designing for Health, Equity, and Affordability. My name is Miranda Wright. I'm the Education and Engagement Manager at Illinois Green Alliance. Whoa, sorry. I want to thank everyone for joining us today to learn more about affordable housing certification, construction, and lessons learned. Everyone has been muted upon entry. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of this program, so feel free to type your questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll go over them after the presentation. For those who are joining us for the first time, Illinois Green Alliance is a membership-driven nonprofit that advances sustainability in the built environment to ensure greener and healthier communities across the state. Through our collaborative initiatives, innovative programming, and advocacy efforts, we've amplified the voice of the green building community to position Illinois as a leader in sustainable building practices. Our members represent every sector in the building industry, from architects and engineers to building owners and construction professionals. You can learn more about membership, check out upcoming events, including our summer social next Thursday, little shout out to that networking event, and then learn how to get involved by visiting our website. The link will be in the chat. Oops. Before we get started, I want to thank our incredible sustaining sponsors for their commitment to our mission. A special thank you to our gold level sponsors, ComEd, USGBC, and Sloan. If you and your organization want to commit to advancing our vision for a net zero future in Illinois, visit our sponsorship page to start a conversation today. And now let's get started with our program. I'd like to introduce you to our fantastic set of speakers. First, we have Andreea Micu. As a principal at Canopy Architecture and Design, Andreea brings experience leading thoughtful, community-driven projects across Chicago. Since joining Canopy in 2017, she has designed and managed a full range of projects from scattered site development to master planning and new building design, including housing, community, and social impact projects. Next, we have Patty Lloyd. With over 20 years of construction and sustainability experience, Patty is a recognized leader in the green building industry. Patty has been with Leopardo Construction since 2004, where she has played a key role in advancing the company's sustainability efforts. As Leopardo Construction's Director of Sustainability, she oversees corporate sustainability, sustainable projects, and Leopardo's ESG program. She is a longtime member and volunteer at Illinois Green Alliance. Emily Ray. Emily helps teams of developers, architects, and builders achieve their green certification goals with an approach that starts in the design phase and continues through the end of construction. She is an experienced project manager that has led teams to achieve LEED Platinum, FIAS, Energy Star, Zero Energy Ready Homes, and Enterprise Green Community certifications. Her favorite part of projects is collaborating with the various team members working towards a common goal. And lastly, we have Mark Kaminski. Mark is driven by his passion for building science, detailing, and making high-performance design accessible to all. Since joining Canopy in 2021, he has worked on numerous affordable housing and community-focused projects in and around Chicago. Mark joined the Encuentro team in late 2021 and was involved in the project from the start of the design development phase through construction administration. And with that, I will pass it off to Andreea.
Thank you, Miranda, and hello, everyone. My name is Andreea Micu, and I'm a principal here at Canopy Architecture and Design. At Canopy, we believe architecture has the power to make positive social impact. Our work focuses on creating spaces that foster meaningful relationships between people, communities, and the environment. We also believe in designing responsibly with sustainability, equity, and long-term resilience at the forefront of every project. We began conceptualizing the Encuentro Square project back in 2019 with Evergreen Real Estate Group and Lucha. Next slide, please. Thank you. At the heart of this project was to bring affordable family housing to Logan Square, a Chicago neighborhood deeply impacted by gentrification and displacement. Encuentro Square offers a rare and meaningful opportunity to create something transformative at a neighborhood scale. The word encuentro, it means to gather, to meet. It also means the act of coming together in Spanish, which perfectly reflects the spirit of this project. Next slide, please. So the site itself sits at the western end of the Bloomingdale Trail, also known as the 606, which was formerly home to a vacant manufacturing facility. In 2014, the site was acquired by the Trust for Public Land, which was instrumental in shaping the 606. We saw this as a moment to create a true gateway to the trail and to the Logan Square community, anchored not only by housing, but by community-oriented functions as well. We envisioned a project that would not only anchor the 606 West End, but to also embody sustainability, equity, and healing. So the project is a 100% affordable two-building development, as you could see here in these images, with an emphasis on family housing, 2 and 3 bedroom units designed to help prevent displacement by providing space for families to stay and grow in their neighborhood. This is a two-phase project, with phase 1 being already completed, and a future third building and a public park is planned south of the 2 buildings shown here. Next slide, please. This project would not have been possible without meaningful collaboration from the community. From day one, we worked alongside residents, city leaders, and stakeholders to create a shared vision. A major outcome of that engagement was the unit mix itself, in which 70 of the 89 total apartments offer 2 or more bedrooms designed for families. We also added family-focused design elements like kids' log steppers in the courtyard, which we'll see later on, and also a dedicated children's room reflecting the feedback that we got from these community sessions. Another product of this collaboration was the Encuentro Health Action Plan. This plan helped guide our design decisions, and it brought healing-centered design principles and trauma-informed design approach to the forefront of the project. Next slide, please. The overall massing of the project encourages dialogue between the buildings and the open space. We brought a trauma-informed design approach to both the site and the architecture. We designed every facade to be welcoming. There is no back or there's no alley facing side of the buildings. Instead, all sides face spaces where people gather, walk, interact, helping foster safety, inclusion, and dignity. On the north side of building 2, which is that 6-story larger building, we designed a vibrant feature wall that celebrates the community, drawing inspiration from monarch butterflies to symbolize migration and resilience, echoing the stories of many families who call this neighborhood home. We also introduced front doors and private patios along Cortlandt Street, which is shown to the image on the right, to respond directly to the neighborhood context, especially the adjacent home, which is across the street of Cortlandt. Building 1 entrance is set back at Cortlandt as well to provide a small public plaza at the 4-story building's entrance. Next slide, please. And our goal was to guide the movement through the courtyard and create a continuous safe experience from the street, which you saw in the last slide, into the building and into this private courtyard. The central courtyard connects both buildings directly, encouraging residents to utilize amenities from both of the buildings, and also connecting a future phase 2 building to be constructed south of the site. As you can see from the photo on the right, that triangle-shaped path will then connect the 3rd building in a future phase. The courtyard is designed as a place for rest, reflection, and play. We worked with Site Design Group, the landscape architect, to incorporate native plantings, landscape mounds, and playful log steppers. Our goal was for the courtyard to foster feelings of safety and connection through clear sight lines, gentle transitions between spaces, and elements of nature to promote a sense of calm and belonging for the residents. Next slide, please. So moving inside the building, we carried forward that same theme of connection. The main building entries function as a pass-through from street through the courtyard, reinforcing a strong indoor-outdoor relationship. We carried this relationship also vertically by incorporating lounge spaces on every floor, giving residents opportunities to rest, gather, connect, both with each other and the courtyard below. These lounges also support a core idea of a healing center design, which is easing the transitions. Moving through a building can be stressful, especially entering new spaces. So we created softer transitions around vestibules, elevator, and entry points, including these built-in seatings that you see there, where residents can take a breath, orient themselves before moving into a new space. Next slide, please. And this is more of the interiors. Two additional healing-centered principles we focused on were safety and cultural connection. First, we maintained open sight lines throughout the interiors by using glass storefronts, enhancing both real and perceived safety. And second, we had a goal of utilizing art to promote social connectedness, incorporating art that is generated by and reflected of the community. For example, in Building 1, this mural here that you see to the right was created by two local artists and coordinated by Palenque LSNA, which is a local neighborhood association. Our priority for the Encuentro Square project was to reflect what's possible when community voices are honored, when trauma-informed design is prioritized, and when we reimagine underutilized land that was originally used as a vacant manufacturing facility, as places of home for the neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pass it over to Patty now, who will share more about the project.
Thank you, Andrea. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patty Lloyd, Director of Sustainability at Leopardo Construction. Leopardo was the general contractor on this project in partnership with All Construction. It was a large job. At the max, we had about 100 people a day working on site between the Leopardo staff and the various trades. I really love this picture. You can see the tradespeople walking down the street to enter the site to go to work that day. The project did become nominated for a number of awards. It was a finalist for the Chicago Building Congress Merit Award, in addition to being a finalist for the 2025 Illinois RE Journal Award. So it was just a wonderful project for us, and we had a really great team that led and executed that project from Leopardo. Next slide, please. So one thing we found at Leopardo, we do a lot of affordable housing, and within affordable housing, particularly in Chicago, there are a lot of intersecting layers of sustainability criteria. It's not like we just have one green building rating system to execute. This project was seeking Enterprise Green Communities certification. Part of that certification requires certification with Energy Star for the multifamily housing certification. In addition, the project was seeking incentives from ComEd and had an agreement that made us need to achieve the ComEd multifamily standard. There's a number of criteria within that that have to be executed in design and in construction. And one of the items that is notable about that is the blower door testing threshold is more stringent in the ComEd standard than in the green building rating system. The project also had to comply with the Chicago Sustainable Development Policy, achieving 100 points on the matrix. The point that most affects the general contractor was the 80% waste diversion from the landfill. And that is also more stringent criteria than is in the Enterprise Green Communities criteria. And lastly, as if that weren't enough, we have our own internal job site sustainability strategies program that projects have to comply with, in addition to any other sustainability strategies. And so this project had to select 5 strategies to implement on the job site to achieve Leopardo's goals of sustainability. Next slide, please. One of our biggest lessons learned on this project was a reinforcement of the understanding that though all green building rating systems have similar themes running through them, like sustainable sites, location-related criteria, materials-related criteria, energy efficiency, water efficiency, though they have those themes, they are not written in each rating system the same, and they are not documented or executed the same. Leopardo has about 4 enterprise green communities projects starting within the same time frame. This project was the first, and so it was our first enterprise green communities project to execute. We looked at our project scorecard and thought, no problem, we can do low emitting materials all day. We know what we're doing. But once we got into the building and into the rating system and into the submittals, we realized that we have had an oversight. And in enterprise green communities, there are mandatory material criteria. This is unlike LEED, Green Globes, National Green Building Standard, where there are optional criteria. In this case, you had to achieve these materials characteristics on these products. So one of the ones that we really cut our teeth on was the formaldehyde-free insulation. We definitely saw low emitting insulation and thought, hey, it's got to be CDPH version 1.2 certified or tested to pass. In fact, that was not the case. It had to be formaldehyde-free, and so we really had to work on that. Insulation at that time was a long lead item that had been ordered, and we were able to stop the order of the non-compliant product before it shipped to site and replace it with a formaldehyde-free material as far as it relates to the vat insulation. So that was a great lesson learned for us. We've definitely got the materials criteria down now. We're mini enterprise green community projects, and so next slide, please. So one other kind of cool thing that happened for Leopardo as a result of this project is we really were able to add a new skill set to our toolbox of what we can deliver on a sustainable project. As you saw earlier on my slide about the intersecting sustainability criteria and how many there are, they all had like a blower door testing criteria. 3 of them did. And that means that we're testing for air leakage in the units. And Emily's going to talk about that more. But for us as a contractor, to have testing that you have to test until you pass was a pretty significant thing, because there's no like not passing, you have to pass. And so EcoAchievers had encouraged us to pursue maybe self-testing our units before the professionals come in, because they felt like it would save us on our schedule. It would obviously make it a little bit easier for them, and it would protect the owner from added costs due to schedule increase. And so we did take their advice and buy a blower door testing kit. We sent our sustainability associate, a superintendent, and 2 carpenter foremen, 1 carpenter foreman and 2 carpenters to training, and they all got certified with this DET verifier training, so duct and envelope testing. This picture here is actually a few of our certified people doing testing on Encuentro Square project. The ability for us to test and find leaks and correct those leaks before final testing from the third-party consultant was a really big deal. And it was a great thing for us to add to our toolbox. This crew goes out to our job sites and does mid-blower door testing on our affordable housing projects. And we're able to make those corrections in the field and keep our schedule on track. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Emily now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patty. I'm Emily from Eco Achievers, and I wanted to start off talking, sort of adding to something that Patty was talking about with the intersecting layers of sustainability criteria. So an additional thing that happened right when this project was starting is the fact that this sustainability criteria evolves over time, and especially in the last couple of years. Energy Star in particular has evolved significantly. And right before this project started, they came out with a new version of Energy Star, where the previous version was more geared towards single family. You could use it for multifamily, but the language was geared towards single family. So they recognized that and made a split. So there is now Energy Star single family new homes and Energy Star multifamily new construction. And this project needed to follow the new Energy Star multifamily new construction. And what happens with Energy Star when it changed is that the requirements just about doubled and the complexity of those requirements increased. So that was just an added sort of complication at the beginning of the project, was that even though Eco Achievers, we've done many Energy Star projects, this was one of our first multifamily new construction projects. And there were a lot of details to figure out and footnotes to digest and questions to the EPA for confirmation. So that was just a little bit of an added detail there. Next slide, please. So within the Energy Star program, and I know there's lots of different certifications that were on this project, but Energy Star has a lot of requirements that we have to verify on site. So I'm kind of focusing on the Energy Star requirements here. There are a lot of testing standards and performance requirements that we have to verify. And of those, I've listed many of them here. Insulation quality, blower door testing, as Patty mentioned, and there are different requirements for Energy Star versus ComEd. So knowing your requirements for your different certifications is really important, so you know which one is the most stringent for your project. Duct leakage testing is required. And again, these are all things that you have to pass. They are mandatory. Ventilation testing, exhaust testing, bedroom pressures. We have to verify all of the mechanical systems and the appliances in the units and in the common spaces. And then there's also minimum filter rating requirements that we have to verify on site. So the programs, the various sustainability programs have items that need to be verified in design and documents submitted. But then for Energy Star, there's a lot of on-site verification, both with testing and verifying that the details that were put forth in the design are actually completed on site. Of these testing performance requirements, the first 4 tend to be the most difficult for teams to achieve. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about those. Next slide, please. Insulation. So Energy Star requires ResNet grade 1 insulation to be installed. If you have continuous exterior insulation, you can do grade 2, which is very minimally different from grade 1. And then grade 3 is not permitted at all. It must be corrected. This can be pretty difficult to achieve with batt insulation. It's probably one of the harder insulations to achieve this essentially perfect install. What we're looking to see is that the insulation fully fills all the cavities. So all 6 sides of your cavity have insulation intact and touching the sides. It's not compressed at all. There's no gaps. And anywhere where there are any sort of obstructions like conduit, you have to cut your insulation, fit it perfectly around. So you can imagine insulation that's blown into the cavity would more easily fill around those, those obstructions and fill the full space. Something along those lines, where batt insulation, there's a lot of manual labor involved to get it to fit perfectly. So you really have to have a lot of communication with your contractors, and sometimes it takes a number of site visits to get it right. Next slide, please. So here are a few examples from Encuentro Square, where at first this was a complication for the team, and that's not uncommon. It is a sticking point for a lot of project teams. And so we did have to come back a couple of times before the installation contractor really got it, which can cause delays. And obviously that's not what we want, but it is one of those things that it has to be corrected until it is meeting the standard in order to continue. So just a few examples of, insulation. On the left, the insulation isn't fully filling the cavity. It's kind of fallen down a bit and not filling that top space. And on the right, it's not filling the space behind the stud. And as I mentioned, you can see that it is cut to fit around the conduit, which is an important feature to make sure that insulation is correct. But after a couple of visits, we did get it down, and then, a smooth sailing after that to complete all of that insulation. Next slide, please. Thanks. The other testing that I mentioned that can be problematic on projects was the ventilation duct and blower door testing. For ventilation, one interesting thing on this project is that there are very sensitive controllers for the CFM, the rate of the exhaust in the bathrooms. And so that was something that kind of had to be tweaked, but wasn't a huge problem. And that, ultimately was fine, but just, not super common problem there. Duct leakage was really interesting because these units are in closets and in tight spaces, and we have to connect to the return side of the unit to do our testing. The unit itself and the ducts, the full system is tested for duct leakage testing. In a number of spaces, we had to do some creative configuring in order to be able to actually test it. Also on this project, there are exposed ducts in most of the units, which you can't really see from this photo, but the exposed ductwork at first I was a little bit worried about because that can be pretty leaky, and you obviously don't want to have the visual of, mastic all over your ductwork. But they did use gaskets in this case to connect the different pieces of the ductwork and also to connect the registers to the ductwork, which proved to be very efficient. So that was a learning lesson for me. This was my first time testing exposed ducts with gaskets, and they were really effective. So I would certainly recommend that to other projects using exposed ductwork. The blower door testing, Patty did a great job explaining where we landed with this, because the VTACs themselves that go through the wall can cause a lot of problems for duct and blower door testing. But it was really helpful that their team got that certification so that they could pre-test their units, and we wouldn't have to do penalty testing since our final testing is on a sampling basis. If they had issues and failures, we would have had to test a bunch more. So that was great that they did that. And the next slide, please. So one more thing I wanted to talk about are a significant air sealing challenge that I think the team did really well with. VTAC units, we see them pretty commonly on affordable housing projects. They are heat pumps. They're not always heat pumps, but in this case they are. So they can meet your efficiency, but they're also space saving and can be affordable. So we often see them on affordable housing projects, but they have a big hole in the wall. They go straight through the wall, and so that can be problematic for both duct testing and for blower door testing. So one thing that, if you're looking at this here on the left side, you have to seal the sleeve that fits into the wall really well. And then in the middle, you can see the different components that come together. So you have the sleeve in the middle, you have a louver on the outside, and then you have the system itself that connects through the sleeve. So you have to seal the sleeve to the wall, and then when you're actually putting the unit into the sleeve, you have to make sure it is really well gasketed, so that you're not experiencing air leakage at that location. So one thing the team did was to have the rep come out for the initial install, to make sure that they were, doing it correctly, getting the best air seal they could here. And ultimately, I think that was really important because on one of the units we tested, there was a piece that wasn't quite sealed in the back, and that caused that unit to fail the duct and blower door test. Again, it was just that one unit, but thankfully it was only that one, and thankfully they took this step to make sure that they had this right to begin with, so that it didn't end up being multiple units that had that issue. So I think that was a big takeaway, and a good suggestion for other projects. But this was a lot of the testing that we did on site. And as I mentioned previously, Energy Star requires a lot of details to go into the plans, to make sure that you're going to meet those requirements. So Mark is now going to talk a little bit about those details.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark. I'm a senior project architect here at Canopy, and I'm going to jump into some of the details that we had to come up with in order to meet the Energy Star multifamily new construction and ComEd affordable housing new construction program requirements. So we'll focus on a few key items, one being the reduced air infiltration that Emily just went over with some of the challenges with the VTACs. And then the other two will be high performance glazing, which was required by the ComEd grant. And the last one will be reduced thermal bridging, which is required by the Energy Star program. And a little bit about our envelope here. We have a metal panel rain screen system on both of our buildings. We have continuous insulation, R8.6 to be exact, and then our cavity insulation is about R21 fiberglass bats. Next slide, please. For the glazing requirements from the ComEd grant, we were required to hit a U factor of 0.27 at our residential windows and 0.35 at our storefronts and curtain wall locations. And in order to hit that 0.27 U factor, we used a UPVC window from a manufacturer based out of Europe. They were one of the few that were able to actually hit that 0.27 number. And we utilized Intus for our residential windows, specifically their Supera 74 line. And the glazing in these units are Guardian glazing, the SN51 product, and that helped us get a U factor of 0.24 for our residential windows. At the curtain wall and storefront locations, we used a Conair thermally broken aluminum curtain wall system at both storefront and curtain wall locations. And we used that curtain wall system at both locations, mainly due to the curving geometries we had. So that proved challenging to find a system that could conform to these geometries, and the Conair system was actually able to give us a customized angled vertical mullion that allowed us to achieve the splay connection there in the curve that you see on the bottom left image. And for the glazing at these locations, we used a Viracon VNE 1-63, and it gave us a U factor of around 0.25. So we exceeded that 0.35 minimum with our glazing units there. Next slide, please. Reduced air infiltration. As Emily mentioned with the VTACs, we also took special care at our window openings. With the windows, we actually used a interior air seal here with Baccarat and sealant here. So if you see in the detail, we actually tie in our window to the air barrier system with that sealant there between the window frame and the back dam. And putting the air seal on the interior side had a few advantages. One of them being we could easily inspect that seal, as you can see in the bottom middle there. And it's also protected from UV exposure and any extreme temperature changes as well. And then another challenge that we had to face was at the larger openings, we actually had to utilize a secondary attachment clip in addition to our nailing flange. So what we did was we actually extended our air barrier transition membrane into our rough openings a bit further. And so we could capture those clips and then also cover those with sealant to avoid any air infiltration at those locations as well. We also have an under-slab vapor barrier, and we also have infrastructure for a future radon mitigation system if needed. Next slide, please. So with the complicated geometries, air sealing these curves presented a challenge to us. So in order to overcome these challenging geometries, we called for a fluid applied air barrier system to be used, or in our case, it was spray applied. So we used Henry's air block product to achieve our continuous air barrier here. And these curved walls also proved a challenge for the window openings and how we were attaching our windows in these curved walls. So what we did was we actually developed a detail where we overframed the window opening, the rough opening and the curved walls here, and blocked it out so we could create a flat surface, particularly so the nailing flange could be fastened to something flat, and then we could then flash and tape our flanges on the exterior. And you can see how we did that in the detail there on the right. Next slide, please. All right, reduce thermal bridging. So as part of the Energy Star program, we had to take special care to reduce our thermal bridging. So we had to develop a couple interesting details and use a couple really neat products. One I really liked in particular was using this fiberglass subgirt product. Fiberglass is much less thermally conductive than metal, so using this was obviously a great choice for us. This particular product, I think it's the Gladiator Sausage Z. It is a great product, not only because of its fiberglass, but because of the slots too, that allow water and air to flow through, and then it also serves as the anchoring function for the our continuous insulation. So you can kind of see how that looks there in the middle right image there with the slots, and then how also the continuous insulation gets installed in that with the clips holding the insulation in place there. And then one other unique product that we ended up using to help achieve some reduced thermal bridging was at our cast stone base. We actually used a high density polyurethane foam to maintain our continuous insulation to extend 2 feet below grade there. And we rested then our cast stone on that foam, which had a PSI of about 350 and is our 2.5 per inch. So our 3-inch block there helped us maintain our continuous insulation minimum of our 7.5, which is based on the previous Chicago Energy Code. And I think that's it from my side. I think I'll throw it back to you, Miranda.
Great. I'm going to turn on all the things, turn off all the things. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
Yes.
thank you all so much. That was a great presentation and so many lessons learned. This is like the perfect webinar that we like to see, is that people are able to showcase how, you know, the tangible things that they are able to learn from a project and let others learn from it as well. So I really appreciate this presentation as a whole. We have a couple questions in the Q&A, so I will start at the top. Was TPL the client developer or another entity? How was a 100% affordable development economically viable or advantageous for them? Was it through government programs, grants, incentives?
Sounds good. I could take that. So there was two developers actually. It was co-developer Lucha, and as well Evergreen Real Estate Group. And Evergreen Real Estate Group right now is managing the property as well. In terms of financing, it was a twin transaction between 4% and 9% LIHTC, which is the low income tax credit. And it was a little bit complicated because we did not, the financing, we didn't split it building 1 versus building 2. It was mixed for both. So, for example, units from building 2, common areas from building 1 would be one transaction, the other one would be the other transaction. And I know that Leopardo, big kudos to them to be able to do 2 different contracts, 2 different subcontractor contracts, 2 different pay applications, and all that paperwork that needed to get cleared up. And also big kudos to the development team as well on that. We also had smaller sources of financing, CHA assistance. Some of these units are CHA units, I believe around 55 units. And there was also the ComEd grant that Mark was discussing. Because we met the ComEd program, we were able to receive some grant money to put into the building as well.
Great, thank you. Next, I believe this is for Emily. Is it possible to combine spray foam for edges between studs and obstructions and bat in the middle? I assume going to that grading situation.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a grading related question. I think it is. So yes, you can always combine different types of insulation. It doesn't always make it easier. I think in some cases it does, but even sometimes the complication comes when you use spray foam in part of a cavity and then try to use bat insulation in the rest of the cavity. That bat insulation still has to fit pretty much perfectly into that cavity. So if you've created a ball of spray foam right here, you kind of have to get your insulation, your bat insulation to fit around that now different type of obstruction. But yes, you technically can. And in some cases, it is definitely advantageous to use both.
I'm going to piggyback on that question because I was curious of, is it Eco Achievers that is approving that it's like hitting that grading scale? And then also, is that just a visual approval, or are you doing like a thermal gun or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so we are ResNet HERS raters, and so you have to have that designation to be qualified to approve that insulation. And then to work on an Energy Star project, you also have to have an Energy Star certification on top of that HERS rater certification. So that is our designation as the third party consultant. We come and view that. So yes, we are the ones approving it, and it is a visual inspection, and it's not, there's no thermal imaging required for it.
Great, thank you. All right, and then last in the Q&A function, and then I have one last one to wrap us up, but I believe this is for Mark, and so I hope you can follow this. Mark's window sill ceiling detail. any concerns about the sealant bead at the windowsill on the exterior side hindering the unit's ability to weep out condensation. I remember learning it's not best to seal the seal of a unit on the exterior side for this reason, though I know that many may also conflict with extra air tightness efforts.
Right. No, yeah, Joe's absolutely right there. It's never good to seal the bottom flange of the window. We do have a bead of sealant where our trim meets the window, but that flange portion is still open for drainage. So the rough opening is still free to drain into the wall cavity. That's why we have the Baccarat sealant, our primary air seal, on the interior side of the window, so that bottom flange can be left open for drainage. Now, say if this was a non-flanged window, I've also seen details where some people do seal that bottom portion of the window, maybe if it's a flangeless install. And there are ways around it where if you're sealing there, you can use a vapor permeable tape, so any water that might collect in that rough opening can dry. I've never done that detail before, but I think that is an option. But yeah, for me, if I think air sealing on the interior side, like Joe mentioned, is the best. And yes, leaving that bottom flange open at the sill of the windows is definitely what you want to do. And that's what we did here as well. So all of our bottom flanges are open for drainage. We just do have that finished bead of caulk where our trim meets the window frame. But yeah, everything can drain.
Great. And then I was gonna wrap us up with hearing about all the layering of these certifications, and obviously some are more stringent than others. I assume it's an integrated, process, and everyone's kind of keeping an eye on it. But like at the end of the day, who's double checking that? Is that EcoAchievers? Is that Leopardo? Like who's making sure like we know which data point from which certification this needs to hit, and we're the ones watching it?
It's a good question. It's kind of interesting because ComEd has their own overview process. So ComEd really handles their own double checking to make sure all of the specs meet the requirements. So they want to review everything up front, and they sign off on all of the, the lighting, everything to make sure it's meeting their requirements. But the blower door testing, like we have to know that to make sure that we're testing to the most stringent requirement. And this project didn't have IDA, but projects that do, that's another blower door requirements. So there's a lot of different entities that have different performance testing requirements. So that's in our scope to kind of double check what are all of the entities that we have to keep track of and which one is the most stringent. So that's something like on our side for our projects, for all of our projects, we just kind of list what are all of the different certifications. And so we know when we see which ones we have, what standards we have to follow. But then, and it was, I think, really nice for us on this project to have Patty, because not all contractors have a person on the sustainability side reviewing their submittals. So it was really nice to have her as the first eye on submittals, saying like, okay, we're meeting our material requirements. A lot of times that just comes to us and we verify, yes, this is meeting the requirement, or no, it's not.
Great, thank you. So I feel like the answer is that you need the dream team, which is here on this project, which I love to hear. All right, well, that has wrapped up our Q&A. I want to thank you all again so much for spending the time and talking to us. For those who signed up for the tour tomorrow, we're excited to meet some of these folks as well as some new faces out on site tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I believe. It is full, so unfortunately, if you haven't signed up yet, we've hit our cap because people are excited. So again, thank you all so much for attending and for presenting, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.